Hi, and welcome to iTenif Healthcare Solutions webinar. We're excited to be presenting Preparedness for Unexpected Downtime Situations in Business Continuity with ChartGuard for NextGen. My name is Chelsea Grover, and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator for iTenif. I'd like to take a moment to explain the process for today's presentation. First, I'd like to mention that this webinar will be recorded and that we'll send out a copy of the slides along with the recording within the next week. Next, for those of you who aren't familiar with iTenif, I wanted to share a bit of who we are with you. We specialize specifically in NextGen healthcare, and our goal in life is to make delighted clients by helping them get the absolute most out of their NextGen software investment. We're passionate about providing solutions for our healthcare provider partners, which in turn help them to improve patient care, enhance the patient experience, and maintain a financially healthy practice. To sum it up, we do everything NextGen. We also, of course, have NextGen add-on productivity solutions, including ChartGuard, which we're discussing today, and Refund Manager, just to name a couple. So next, I wanted to mention some upcoming educational webinars that we'll be presenting in the near future. First, on February 24th, we'll be discussing utilizing NextGen HQM for a successful 2020 MIP submission. And on March 3rd, we'll go through using NextGen to ensure interoperability and compliance with the 21st Century Cures Act. And finally, once NextGen releases the new spring version of 6.2021.1, you can always depend on us to do our usual favorite features or tips and tricks kind of webinar shortly after. So we'll send out details and links to those registrations a week before the presentations, so keep your eyes out for those. So some housekeeping notes for today's presentation. At the end of the presentation, we'll open the floor up to questions from you. We'll answer all the questions at the end, but you can type them in the questions area of the webinar control panel whenever they occur to you. And finally, for audio clarity purposes, everyone's phone will remain muted throughout the entire webinar. If you experience audio issues, please use the chat box to let us know so we can resolve them. And again, questions may be entered in the questions box. So before we get started today, I thought it might be fun to start things off with a quick couple of polls here. So if everybody will take a look at their screen, you'll see a quick one to chime in on. We just want to know what best describes your interest in this webinar today. Are you here to be proactive, to be prepared just in case of a future EHR outage, or perhaps reactive? Did you recently lose EHR connectivity and don't want to repeat that mess again? So if everybody just wants to take a minute and vote on the screen, we'll give everybody a couple more seconds here to get their answer weighed in. This is always one that I'm interested to see because it seems to change based on the webinar. So we'll close this here in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so let's see those results just so you can see where you are comparatively. So it looks like a lot of people are here to be prepared just in case. So way to go, guys. Way to be proactive. And for those of you who are here reactively, we're here for you. So glad that you found something that hopefully might help to keep this from happening again in the future. And we'll do one more. Okay, finish this sentence. If we lost connectivity to our EHR, select all that would apply. Would patient care be impacted? Would your workflow be impacted, minorly disrupted? Would everything in the office come to a screeching halt? Perhaps you would lose billing, or would it impact your productivity? So again, this is just out of curiosity to see where you weigh in with other people and kind of what kind of an impact losing access to NextGen might have for you. So we'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and let's share that. Okay, so for a lot of you, it looks like your workflow would be minorly disrupted. Good for you. You guys must have some good measures in place to make sure that it won't be majorly disrupted. So well on you for that. Looks like patient care would of course be impacted. It would impact your productivity, and some minor concerns that everything in the office would come to a screeching halt and that we could lose billing. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let me keep going here. Okay, so now that we got that done, our presenters for today. Tom Seco is iTenif's Business Development Manager and Subject Matter Expert on the product, and Joe Schultz is the Director of Products at iTenif, which means that he and his team are the people that actually built ChartGuard for NextGen, so thus is going to be in a great position to talk about it. So Tom, I'm going to pass it off to you. Feel free to get started when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Chelsea, and thank you everyone for joining our webinar today about accessing your patient records during an unexpected system outage. This is an agenda of what we'll cover today. You'll gain an understanding of why practices invest in this type of solution. We'll talk a little bit about EHR dependencies and what that means. We'll talk about how ChartGuard would work in your environment. We'll show you the output that's generated by ChartGuard. Give you another brief overview of who Attentive is, and we'll answer any questions that you have. I'm going to take you through a few slides in the beginning to give you a high-level overview of ChartGuard, and then and the issues that you face with regards to outages. And then in the middle of the presentation, I'll have Joe come in and he'll talk about ChartGuard and specifically how it works and how it's structured. So what we're talking about today, simply we're talking about a business continuity solution that ensures that you have availability of patient charts during EHR downtime. We all know that our EHR systems are based on complex technology. We know that we have servers, we have workstations, we have tablets, we have scanners, we have T1 lines, we have VPNs, we have fiber lines, we have local area networks, wireless routers, wireless base stations, we have internet connections, we got power systems, we have cooling systems. We have all of these pieces of all these components, and behind each one of these components, there's software that runs as well. So anytime that we have a situation that can cause the software to break or the hardware to break, we are subject to having an outage, a system outage. And when we lose access to our EHR system, it has impacts to our practice or to our health center. Quality of care can be impacted because we don't have access to the patient's health record, and we may not recall all of their history. So then we have to start asking questions, and maybe we have to start asking a lot of questions in order to uncover their history. And that can lead to taking more time than usual. And when we take more time than usual, that can lead to lower productivity. And when we have these kind of situations going on, when we have an outage, we can lose revenue because maybe we have to turn away some patients, or maybe patients start leaving because it's taking longer than they expected. Because we have become so dependent on technology and it works nearly all the time for us, we tend to put outages and how they occur in the back of our mind and not really think about it. So it's always good once in a while to kind of bring that to the forefront and think about why outages occur and how they occur and what kind of impacts they can have. I have gone and do research periodically on outages, and this is kind of a summation of what I found over the past few years. I'm not going to go into each one of them, but really just want to bring your awareness that things can happen that are out of our control, and that's why they're called unexpected. Some are mechanical, where we could lose an HVAC system or we could lose a sprinkler system. Some are computer hardware based. Some are software based. Some are nature based, caused by fires and storms. Some are caused by humans, people with good intentions who just make mistakes, and people with bad intentions who want to cause disruption and chaos. So as you kind of look at this slide, reading through it, you can see, outages occur for many different reasons. They extend or have a duration of short period of time to a long period of time. They affect maybe just a set of customers, or they can affect quite a bit. If we're talking about situations like affecting Facebook or YouTube or Google Suite or something like that. So it can have some major impacts along the way. But again, just to bring your attention and a reminder to all of us that these things do occur, and they do occur generally out of our control. And a lot of these companies that you see up here too, they're built for 365 days a year uptime, 24 hours a day, and they experience outages, so they can occur. There have been some studies that have been done over the years with regards to what downtime costs in a medical organization. And some of those studies have shown that it can cost as much as $488 per hour per provider. So it can be quite expensive when you experience an outage. If you take that and extrapolate that out for a 10 provider practice that could be down for 4 hours, it can cost as much as $19,520. So there is a significant expense when that happens. Because we have situations that can affect our EHR systems, HIPAA has a clause that says that we should have a contingency plan or plans for responding to various emergencies or other situations that can impact our EHR systems. So what are some of the options when we're dealing with an outage? So we could temporarily close the practice or a location. We could go to paper charts, but that's becoming more and more difficult for us to do, obviously, because we're so ingrained in our EHR systems nowadays. You could implement redundant technologies. So you could add more servers, you could add more, another network, you could add more SANs or storage area networks, more data, our data center, more power systems or cooling systems. Once you get into adding more redundant technologies, it can be quite expensive when you're doing that. You can go to a third-party hosting environment if you want to get out of having the services on your premises or the servers on your premises. But that has some issues with it as well. If you need to get access to that third-party hosting environment, you usually have to go through the internet. And if the internet's down, you're not going to be able to get out there. The other option you have is to implement a solution that ensures that you are prepared to handle a downtime situation. So that's just kind of a look at some of the options that we have as organizations when we're faced with the EHR downtime situation. So as we reflect on just what I talked about with regards to thinking about these things, that our systems are complex, that our systems are dependent on many components, that the downtime is caused by unexpected events that are beyond our control, and the types of impacts that it can have on our practice and on our health center. Some questions that we should be thinking about, some questions that we should be asking ourselves are, do I pursue an uptime situation, more uptime, or do I pursue a solution that enables me to continue on with my business until NextGen comes back online? Am I going to be reactive or proactive? My clinic's preparedness for a downtime situation. Reactive meaning that I have had a downtime situation that I've had within my organization, and I don't want to go through that experience again. I want to have a solution in place that allows us to keep the clinic operational while we're trying to bring the IT systems, the NextGen systems back online. Proactive meaning, we haven't had an outage yet. We haven't had to face this, but I want my clinic, my health center, my practice to be prepared in case we do. So think about, those things. Another question you should be asking ourselves is, what are the type of impacts that a NextGen downtime incident can have on our clinic? Those types of impacts that I mentioned earlier, revenue impact, productivity impact, quality of care impact. Think about those types of impacts that that having a downtime incident can have on the clinic. Then think about, how significant can the impact be to our clinic based on the duration of the downtime incident. So if I'm down for an hour, what being down for an hour, how would that impact my revenue? How would that impact my productivity? How would that impact my quality of care? If I'm down for 2 hours, how significant of an impact would that be to my revenue, to my productivity, to my quality of care? If I'm down for 4 hours, how significant of an impact would that be to revenue, to productivity, to quality of care? So think about those things as you're thinking about downtime solution and what it could mean to your organization. The other thing you should be asking is, how do I minimize the loss? How do I minimize disruption when I have a downtime situation and it occurs to our organization? So how do I minimize the loss of revenue? How do I minimize the loss of productivity? How do I minimize the disruption that occurs to my organization? How do I minimize having lesser quality of care if that's the case? So, you know, what can I do to minimize that? And the question really should not be, will my clinic lose connectivity? Because as we just saw on that slide about the outages and the unexpected outages and how they occur, the many instances that occur as far as, you know, hardware or software or, you know, just some bad actors out there or just people who just make mistakes. You know, it can happen unexpectedly. So as we as a company, I tend to have thought about those things, and as our clients thought about those things, they came to us and said, you know, is there an affordable? Can you write an affordable option? Can you develop an affordable solution for us that enables us to make sure that the clinic is still operational while we're trying to bring the IT system, the NextGen system, back online? You know, how can we remain productive? How can we make sure that we have access to the information that we need to provide the quality of care to our patients that they've come to expect from us? And we came up with ChartGuard. So it does ensure that you're prepared for a downtime situation at each of your office locations or clinic locations, and that you have access to your patient charts during EHR downtime. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and he's going to talk to you about ChartGuard and how it works.
All right, thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone for joining us today. You know, the takeaway from all those slides is that these systems are very complex. For those of you who are in the webinar today and on the technical side, you know how complex they are. For everyone who's on the business and clinical side, you deal with the occasional headaches from all this complexity of the systems. One of the goals we had about a decade ago when we first created ChartGuard was to have a way to get to the clinical information for your patients coming into the practice at a time when this complexity has failed you, when the planets are no longer aligned so everything works. All those pieces Tom listed in the early slides there, they have to be working and working reliably all the time so you can get to your EHR data. Additionally, the first couple clients we were working with on ChartGuard were in areas of the country, southern half of the United States. One was in an area prone to big thunderstorms and tornadoes, and the other one was in an area prone to hurricanes. So it became important to build something that wasn't reliant on this complexity, something that overnight could take the data out of a complex environment and reform it into something that's easy to use. And that's really what ChartGuard does. There's a ChartGuard engine. You may have one or more of them that runs in or near your data center. And what that does is it looks at your database. It looks at your appointment schedule and says, who's coming in the next few days? What locations are they going to be seen at in those days? And then it goes and creates a PDF file of that patient's chart for each patient and pushes it out to the location where they're going to be seen. Now we'll get into a minute what those charts contain and what the options are, but the whole key is you now have this file that has your clinical information and is sitting within the four walls of each of those locations. In fact, not only do we look at the next day's appointments, but we look at the next several days' appointments. So if your outage lasts several days, maybe it goes down late in the afternoon and the tech for the network won't be out until the next morning. Maybe there's a part for a router that needs to be shipped overnight. So this way you'll have that clinical information out there within the four walls of the practice. So this file that gets created by the ChartGuard engine that runs in your data center is simply a PDF file. What the ChartGuard engine does is take all the complexity of NextGen and render it into an easy to read PDF file that can be available on pretty much any computing device that you deem fit and is within your security guidelines. Or it can also be easily printed to paper, right? Because that's one of the great things about PDF files is they look the same on the screen as they do on paper. So each night this system's going to run, it's going to generate the charts for the patients coming in over the next several days. It's going to push them out to the location where the patient is scheduled, and it's going to clean up the old charts that are no longer being used. It's going to do this literally day in and day out. It's going to do it on your behalf. We've had some clients who kind of were manually printing reports every night and collecting documents, things like that. And this really eliminates the need for all that automatic effort. This way, when the system goes down, whether it's tomorrow or 6 months from tomorrow, that clinical information is going to be there. You're going to have a PDF file for each patient available to be used electronically within the 4 walls of that location, should the network be up within those walls, or they can print it to paper and you can put it in a manila folder and take it back with the patient, just like we did, many years ago. So it gives you a lot of different options for that clinical data. But again, the key takeaway here is when complexity fails you, ChartGuard will be there to save you because it doesn't have a complex footprint. You just need to be able to open and read these PDF files. So let's go ahead and look at what's in the chart. All right, the nightly deliverables that ChartGuard is going to take care of is each site is going to get an appointment listing, right? Because it does no good for you to have all the charts without knowing who's coming in, especially if you're printing them. That appointment listing becomes valuable because you can just print them as it gets close to the appointment time, as opposed to dumping everyone to paper and having to manage all that. So you get that appointment listing at each of your sites for who's scheduled to come in that day. In the PDF file for each patient, each of their charts, you're going to get a patient data sheet, which is your basic demographic information, guarantor, insurances, great things like that. We're going to pull the module data from NextGen, allergies, labs, orders, immunizations, the items you see here. Those are going to come out in nice, easy to read grids that are, sorted by date. We're going to be able to pull documents into there. So any EHR generated documents. This eliminates the need to capture specific templates, because the key is if you're generating the documents from that data, you'll have those and we'll be able to pull a quantity of those into these PDF files also. Additionally, you can also pull in certain types of ICS documents into that PDF file. Now, some of you may be thinking, gosh, we have some patients who have been coming to us for 10 years and their PDF file is going to be 100 pages long. Well, as part of the setup for ChartGuard, we work with you to set the depth of the information that's going to be in the files. All right, so if you just need the last several of a certain file or the last 6 months of data, that's all configurable in ChartGuard. In fact, when we work with you to install it in your environment, we'll set up kind of a baseline that's the common case that most clients use. And we can start from there and you can review it and make suggestions on different items that you may want to pull in there. So having this ability to pull this information and customize the depth of the information becomes very important. Having the ability to also pull in your EHR documents really allows you to, not only use standard KBM stuff, but other templates you may have created that you're generating documents off of. So it really becomes a great solution for getting you that information when your system's down, the complexity has failed you. You'll now have these PDF files that you can pull up and use to get the patient's clinical history. And Tom's going to show us what those look like and how easy to read they are and how they're set up so you can navigate them quickly.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So here's what the charts look like. So, well, this is an example of the appointment listing that Joe was mentioning that each location would get. So you would have the location, the physician, the patient that's coming in, what time they're coming in for, what time they're coming in, and what they're coming in for, so that the front desk knows who's coming through the office at the time. And this is what the chart looks like. So as Joe mentioned, it's PDF format. You'll see the first part of the PDF is the demographic information with regards to the maybe information about the patient, responsible party, the insurances. Information is there for you. And then as you scroll down, then you have the module data. So you have the allergies information, and it's nicely laid out in a table format. And again, you can see the depth of information here. As Joe mentioned, this is customizable so that you can control the depth of it as well. Here's medications. Again, a nice table format. And you can scroll from top to bottom. Here's the labs information, chronic conditions. Now, if there's a lot of information like this one, it's 21 pages long, we bookmark the sections as well. So it makes it very easy for individuals to move around the file and get to the section that they want to look at that interests them at this point in time. So if they wanted to take a look at immunizations, they could just go to the immunizations tab, bookmark, and click on that. If they want to go back to medications, they could just go back up to medications. And then as Joe mentioned, we also have documents and ICS images that we can pull in. So here's a look at the document and what it looks like. And then as I can scroll down here, here's the ICS image that comes in as well. And as Joe mentioned, you can control this as well. So easily, scroll from top to bottom if you want, or use the tabs, the bookmarks to get to a particular section that you want to see. So that's what the chart looks like. And as Joe mentioned, it's easily readable on any type of platform. So whether it's a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, your smartphone, and easily printable as well. And it prints just in the format as you see here. So that's examples that are generated by ChartGuard, the appointment listing, and then the patient chart as well. Here's a client of ours who took the time to write us a small email after they had experienced an outage. This is a client who's an orthopedic practice in Tennessee. They, as I mentioned, took the time to write us a quick email about their experience using ChartGuard. They're fairly large now. They're about 20 locations, and they've been using ChartGuard for several years. When they purchased ChartGuard, about 6 months later after they purchased it, they had an outage at 2 of their largest clinic locations. And prior to implementing ChartGuard, they typically closed the clinics that were being affected by an outage and had to turn away their patients. With ChartGuard being implemented, they were able to see their patients with minimal disruption using both the appointment listing that I showed to you and then the PDF chart files that were generated by ChartGuard. So they were able to keep the clinical side of the practice of the functioning while their IT team was working to bring NextGen back online. So as you can see from the quote, their physicians were quite pleased with the ChartGuard solution. So that's a little bit about ChartGuard and what it does, a little bit about business continuity and downtime preparedness, and some of the things that you should be thinking about as you're exploring such a solution for your practice and for your health center. A little bit about us and who we are. As Chelsea mentioned, we were founded in 2003, and we have 20+ years of experience with NextGen. We have 40-some employees in the company, most of which are consultants that travel from organization to organization, working with the organizations to get as much value out of NextGen as possible for you. If you take 2003 into 20 years, they do not add up, and the reason for that is I tend to have started out as the IT department for a medical organization. And back in the late 90s and early 2000s, when the business mantra back then was focus on what you do best and outsource the rest, the medical organization was going to outsource the IT group. Leaders of the IT group said, well, if you want to do that, what we'd like to do is form our own company and provide services back to you. So they agreed to do that. And from that point forward, we've worked with over 350 to 400 clients that use NextGen. And during this time frame, we've become a strategic partner with NextGen as well. This is just a slide that shows that we generate our revenue through, basically 5 areas. Consulting, that I just talked about a little bit, clinical workflows, optimization, revenue cycle consulting, optimization of your systems, compliance with regulations and things like that. Customization, we can customize templates and customize reports, and creation of productivity products such as ChartGuard that we talked about today. These are products that are developed in Joe's group, and they are, like Chelsea mentioned earlier, refund manager. We also have unapplied deposit manager as well. We do have a group of technology folks that can provide IT managed services, meaning that we can supply or provide services to support your desktops, your laptops, your printers, your local area networks. We also have our own data center, so we can do complete hosting for organizations out of our data center. Support, we can provide help desk support, both on the application side and the hardware side. And then we are a NextGen partner and authorized reseller as well. So those are the areas that we generate our revenue from. We can provide any one of these services as a point solution, or in combination with each other as an integrated solution. This is a slide that just shows a few of our productivity tools that are developed out of Joe's group. As I mentioned, Refund Manager streamlines and automates the credit balance handling and refund check processing within your organization. Multiple Encounter Billing Manager enables you to enter in multiple encounters for a single patient visit. We have developed and do have the interface to NextGen through Phreesia, and then the unapplied deposit manager that allows you to efficiently manage and your unapplied dollars and your copay dollars and any deposit money that you might take in advance of services. So it's a few of our tools that we've developed over the years. With regards to next steps and questions, if you would like to have a more in-depth discussion about ChartGuard and how it would work within your practice or your health center, you see my contact information here on the screen, as well as Joe's contact information. Don't hesitate to get in touch with us. This way you can ask questions as it specifically pertains to your organization and to your current processes. So with that, we'll take any questions that you have.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you, Joe. And again, thank you everybody for joining us today. If you have questions, you can type them in the questions area of the webinar control panel. We'll go through them in the order that we received them. We only have a handful, so we have plenty of time. We will answer all the questions in the order that they come, so don't hesitate to ask. Okay, first question. Can we use this to give patients a copy of their charts?
That is a great question, and that's one that our clients started asking us as soon as we started deploying ChartGuard. They looked at the PDF files and said, this would be great to give to patients for chart requests, to use for audit purposes for chart requests, or even for providers that are leaving the practices where they don't want to do a discrete data conversion. So what we came up with is there's a product that produces the same output as we saw here for ChartGuard, but it has a user interface where you can pick and select the population that you want to create the charts for, and that's ChartGuard On Demand. So again, it uses a lot of the same plumbing as this, but it has a nice user interface sitting on it where you can pick by, patient name, provider, insurance, all things that you'd use in those kind of situations. So if you're interested in that, definitely give Tom a call and we can go ahead and talk to you about that.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe. Next question. What is the cost of this product? Tom, you want to take that?
Sure. There's as far as specific cost, you can give me a call and I can talk about it specifically with you and your organization. There are 3 components to our pricing. There is the license fee, which is a one-time fee. There is a installation, training, configuration fee. which is a one-time fee. And then the third component is the annual software maintenance. That is your only recurring fee, and that covers any calls to the help desk, any new releases to the software, any updates to the software, any fixes to the software as well.
Perfect, thank you, Tom. Next question. NextGen runs in a hosted environment at our practice. Can we still use ChartGuard? Joe, you want to take that?
I sure can. The answer is yes. We work with a number of different practices that are hosted either by NextGen or ourselves or some of the other partners in the NextGen space, and we'll work with the hosting provider to go ahead and get ChartGuard set up and installed. It has a real small footprint. It has minimal impact to virtually none while the practice is seeing patients. And also we can pull the information off the report server if you wish instead of the production server. So there's lots of good options that people love to hear us talk about when we're installing into their hosted environment.
Perfect, thanks, Joe. And it looks like this might be our last question. We live in an area that's prone to hurricanes. Is it possible to create charts for more than just 3 days out when we know in advance the storm may be coming?
You know, we do get those requests from time to time, and yes, it is possible, especially if you're running it against the report server, because what we can do is increase that number of days that ChartGuard is going to look at, so you can have a week's worth of charts sitting out there, and then once the hurricane or whatever weather event is subsided, we can reduce it back to the normal amount of days and get everything back on schedule. Kind of the good news, bad news with hurricanes is normally you know in advance when they're coming. So if you think you're going to be in that situation and you have ChartGuard, reach out to our support line and we can have a tech get in there and increase that number for you.
Great, and it looks like we have another question that came through. Is there a way to perform any functions in ChartGuard like sending only prescriptions, or is it strictly view only?
ChartGuard is written to have a low complexity footprint. That's why it's a PDF file. It's intentionally view only. You take the information down on paper. What clients normally do is they have a stack of forms that they use along with the chart during downtime, and then those get input when the system comes back up. Our goal was really not to create a parallel EHR with its own complexity, but to give you that clinical data for making care decisions.
Okay, well, it looks like that's all the questions, but if you think of any after the fact, or if you're in the middle of typing one and we cut you off, you see both Tom and Joe's information up on the screen. Feel free to reach out to either of them directly. Otherwise, you can always reply back to the email that I'll be sending within the next few days here with a link to the recording. Basically, any way that you can get a hold of us, we're happy to help. We want you to, really feel comfortable with this product. And if you have any concerns or questions, or hey, can it do this? Let us know. We're here for that. We're here to help. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us with those. And I want to thank you all again for joining us today. If you're in the Chicago area like I am, good luck with the snow. Looks like it just started by me. And if you're not, I hope you have better weather than we do. Thank you all for joining us, and stay healthy, stay safe. Have a great week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.